I need you to say that Joyce Meyer's shirt was ugly this week, right? Whatever. Like if I have to force words into your mouth, right? Then I'm violating. Sorry, I'm trying to break the ice. It's getting kind of, it feels a little bit serious in here.
Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. This is Taylor Schote with Tim Ware, the president of Advancement Coaching and Consulting. Today, we will be discussing practical insights for pastors and church leaders to advance your life, your work, and your ministry. Are you ready to advance?
Well, welcome back to part 4 of our session and our series on social media. Sorry. Anyway, so it's great to have you back one more time with us on this topic. It's great for you to be back. Yes.
I'm good to be back. Yeah.
Sorry, my brain.
Too much Mexican food.
Too much Mexican food. But this has just been a stellar day for us. Taylor and I have been learning so much. So Taylor, why don't you kick us off here? And because you have some news about social media.
Yeah, we are on episode 4 here, and I have a confession. Back in early part of June of this year, 2019, I was sitting in church. And Apple had come out with this new feature on the phones, on the iOSs, that showed you your screen time. Mm-hmm. I think it's just an app built into the settings, and it starts to show you how much time you spent on, reading news, how much time you've spent on different things, and social media is one of them. And it gives you a weekly report. So I'm sitting in church, and I get this pop-up that says, here's your weekly screen time. And I feel gross for what I'm about to say, but it showed up that day and said, you have spent this week an average of 4.5 hours of screen time on social media. And I felt an instant conviction thinking I'm about to have our first child. My wife constantly is asking me to get off my phone. I'm in graduate school. I'm kind of wrapping up grad school here. And I feel like God's called me to do some things writing wise and educational, even pursuing potentially a PhD. And just instantly felt like the Lord said, hey, give up your social media. And so real quickly here, I thought, well, I'll just take all the apps off my phone, only do it on my computer. And the more I pressed into that, the more the Lord impressed in me to delete them all. And so it's been, at least at the time of this recording, almost 2 or 3 months of no social media whatsoever.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. I feel like a whole different man.
Yeah.
With 0 friends.
So we started off this episode. You got, hi, everybody. I'm Taylor. Yeah. And it's Alcoholics Anonymous book for social media.
Prior to the first week, I was picking out of habit, muscle memory, picking up my phone, wanting to scroll, going, I don't have nothing to scroll.
Sure.
I felt for a withdrawal. How am I going to stay connected? Even recently, especially in some of the fellowship things we got going on, information I wanted to know, and I didn't know how to get access to it. And it's been now weeks into it. It's been very liberating.
This is a trend we see with people is that they take a break here and there, which is
if I can put one more spec on this, when I did it, I had a lot of people kind of question me. Why are you doing this? I had no motive other than wanting to follow the Lord's leading. But this is what I heard him say when I really went to push the delete button, because I questioned it all the way to the delete button. I felt like the Lord told me that social media is a tool. And it's a tool for him and a tool for ministry. But for me in this season, it just wasn't the tool he wanted in my hands.
Yeah.
And so I know I will come back around to it because I believe it really is a positive tool. It just in the time before now, it wasn't a tool being used correctly.
To steal Tim's word, the peace, it's the moderation piece, right?
Yeah,
all things are good, right? Food is good, and sex is good. All these things are good within the confines that they have been determined by for God.
Right.
So anytime that we use anything in excess, if you're angry, be angry, but sin not. You can do those things, but you can't go beyond those things.
Yeah. So this episode, where the first episode we just talked about social media in general, then we took 2 episodes and we talked about best practices, guidelines for using it as in the church, but because there's so many connections between us and we're men and women of God. Taylor and I talking about this ahead of time, we just felt like it was important that we take and dedicate one episode, which might be very difficult, but dedicate one episode to talking about the personal use of social media for the believer. It's not so much about how often I post, but how do we manage that piece in our life, whether it be taking a break, taking a Sabbath, a sabbatical, or whatever. How do we manage those pieces in our life?
Yeah. So when he was telling a story, we had talked about this briefly in the break, hadn't thought of this, but in Colossians chapter 2, verses 20 through 23, he says this, talks about dying to the world and elementary principles. He says these ideas of do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which concern things which perish with the use according to the commandments and the doctrines of men. Because these things indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed religion, but they don't actually produce piety or holiness. So anytime that a Christian, well, I go to Teen Challenge a lot and minister there, and they've had substance abuse and they don't ever want to go to those parties or listen to that music or do anything that looks like that again. I just remember telling them, can Christ go to Mardi Gras and witness to people? Yeah, he could. Now there's temptations all around him, right? Yeah, absolutely. But those things don't have a hold of him, right? So he never had to put the rule, don't drink, don't look at nude women, don't whatever. He didn't have to put that rule in front of him to keep himself holy. His heart was pure and he was able to live in holiness in those settings.
That's good.
So there's a heart issue. So what we're talking about in your given situation is self-control. Is it possible for those of you who are out there who are like, I spend too much time on social media, that you're going to delete the app and then spend twice as much time on Netflix and Hulu? Right? So that's not a shot at anybody. That's just saying, if you are that person who's trying to control your time, this is a self-control gospel issue. We need to point our affection and focus towards Christ, and He prioritizes our lives, and allow Christ's work to transform our heart and not try to do outside in, but let Christ do inside out. So it's a both and approach to this given topic. When we're talking about social media in the personal use, I would encourage any person who is posting anything outside of Christianity, inside of Christianity. You've got a personal brand, you've got a product that you're selling. This is beneficial to anyone who's watching. Keep within your thread. I think the statement of let Christ be the stumbling block would benefit your company too. Like if you were a Christian trying to sell tires to mass populace. If you were Firestone or Michelin, it'd be a good idea not to bring up politics into that situation. You might lose yourself clients.
Yeah.
I think that's a good principle to kind of unilaterally place across all people everywhere. If you're going to have someone strike a fence with you, let it be on something that actually matters and not something that's insignificant.
That's such a huge piece that you just talked about, because as we talk, if you look down through social media and you're in pastors groups and circles, they're taking what would be social issues and or moral issues, and even they post and write about them from political perspectives, like we're going to legislate morality anyway. The reality is that every nation on this earth is going to pass away, and they're taking kingdom things, kingdom issues, and they're pulling them down to a point where it becomes controversy and it becomes offense. And so that's thank you for saying that.
Sure. And I think for the audience that's out there that's listening, we're talking about personal branding, the circles that we were talking about before. Again, highly important that we figure out who we are as a person, and then we can find out how our brand flows from that. I met a guy who he was trying to start a college ministry, right? And he kept telling me, Bethel music this, Bethel music that. I was like, bro, do you play music? And he goes, no. I was like, when was the last time you were praying for someone on the street? I don't know, like 2 years. Like, okay, bro, you're not Bethel. Like, I know that they're reaching people,
right,
but you are not them. And what happens is we will put a weight on ourselves. Jesus says, like, his yoke is easy, his burden is light, right? He wants you to reach people in your local context through your natural means. He doesn't want you to force yourself to be, Bill Hybels. He doesn't want you to force yourself to be Rick Warren. He doesn't want this weight on you to say, look, they're doing this and this is successful. Change yourself to be like them so you can reach the same kind of success. What you'll find is you'll do that, that pretty well for 2 or 3 months, and then your natural leaning is going to pull out, and you're going to start doing you and communicating yourself what you're passionate about. And the people you pulled in for the last 3 months are going to go, wait a second, I thought you were all about this, and now you're changing your brand. So it's better to just figure out who you are and stay in your lane, because we find out that it's really easy to be yourself, and there are people who like you. So just be you.
What do you say to these people that say, well, this is my Facebook ministry, where, I'm praying for people over this. They're posting it. I don't know how much, you talked about how much to post as a organization, but where this is what they do all the time. I don't know.
Yeah,
that it's,
I think there's some framework here. What do you do? How do you coach somebody, a pastor per se, or even a staff pastor, ministry leader, who would say, this is part of my platform as my role of a pastor?
Yeah.
This is who I am.
This is who
if
I am.
I'm sitting down on coffee, I'm talking about this scripture anyway. That's kind of my lane. Like I love theology, and if I'm going to post something, it's going to be theology. And some people are like, "You're being too churchy." It's like, no, I'm just being me. I can't not do this. I get that. What I would encourage a person to do is look at their comments, their shares, and their likes. If you're posting 6 times a day and you're getting 1 like and it's from your mom, maybe you're oversaturating your market. Maybe people are saying you are saying a lot of very useful things, but you're saying them so often that I actually don't care. You're wanting that, like, when you post something that you're getting some good traction on it. If you got 15 likes, comments, those kinds of things, you're doing pretty decent. Okay. We're not looking for Grammy award winning, the post of the year is, Pastor Mark, we're not looking for that. We're looking for, is there some level of engagement? Are people responding to what I'm saying? There's good times to post, like post around 2:00 on Facebook is a good idea. If you post at 2:00, it takes about an hour or 2 hours for the algorithms to propagate that across the platform, and people are getting out of work and school around 4 and 5. So it's a general rule of thumb. Post around 2 or 3. That's helpful. Okay. Sometimes in the morning, if you want to do a video post that's short, post it on a Tuesday morning. People come into work, they sit down at their computer, they see a video, they're watching that video at work for the first opening. Everyone does it. And they're all looking at you with a smile. Like if you sit at a desk, you do it. So those kinds of things, there are things that we can do that are helpful, but the overarching principle of who you are, I think we gotta.
What I find very interesting is, I'm all right. We established earlier in this series that I'm the old guy, aged beef, whatever.
Man, I think he was hurt by that, bro.
I'm okay. I'm okay. But the point is I don't necessarily think that. I mean, there's so many guys. It's interesting. Have you watched today? I'm not built that way. I don't. When something's going on, my first thought isn't go ahead, take a picture, post on. I mean, I have to go, oh, I should probably post this, but I missed the opportunity. When half of what's going on today, half of what we see on the news is cell phone video because somebody's whipping it out and posting. And I'm not designed that way. Whether I'm just not from the generation or it's just not the way I'm built, either one. But what you just said makes me feel better because it's be you, and it's almost very similar to what you said, be intentional.
Yeah.
Be authentic and be intentional. Don't just be random.
Yeah.
In what you're doing. Now, does that include not just posting, but how in Taylor's piece, it wasn't he was just posting that much, but he was scrolling that much. So what about the engagement side? What's the difference? I mean, how should we like or comment or retweet or share? What are the things that, especially as men and women of God leaders, because that's really who we put a lot of emphasis on here as leaders. What are some of the things that we should be doing what are the guidelines for that sharing, commenting, retweeting, that component?
So there's going to be a marketing piece that we're talking about now. Up until this point, we've talked a lot about social engagement, but I'm gonna kind of tip into like getting recognized by someone with a bigger brand. I would really encourage people who are out there, if you are in the leadership space, we'll talk about you for a second because it's an easy target. You're in the leadership space. What I would do is I'd go through your Facebook profile and I'd go find the guys that you want to be recognized by that are just right beyond your reach, right? Whether that's Rick Warren, whoever, like you want to do a leadership podcast, do it with the best of the best, man. Reach out to the big dogs. The way that you do that is you create consistent, regular content on leadership that's always on your page. And then you hound those guys. There's a first in feed feature in Facebook. If you're on your phone or on your desktop, you can click your friendship relationship, and under friend, there's a drop down and you can click first in feed. And that means whenever they post, they're the first one that comes up in your feed because they're your favorite person. And if you remember to comment, to like, to share their content, if you are regular at comment, Pastor Rick, way to go, killed it again. Hey, Pastor Rick, man, thank you so much for this. It was super helpful. And you just live in that zone, every single comment. He starts catching wind of how frequently you are there. Hey, Pastor Rick, man, you're at this for like 2 months and you go, man, I would love, your stuff has really been challenging me this month. Would you check out this video that we did? I took a few of your thoughts, that kind of thing. And Pastor Rick goes and watches your video and goes, man, this is legit stuff. And then he gives you a comment back. Well, now you and Pastor Rick are talking and you can send him a message and say, hey, would you come on our show and talk to us about this kind of thing? And it's a legitimate conversation. You're legitimately interested in his content. You think he's a great person. You love his leadership stuff. It really is impacting you. It's not dishonest, but it is a way to connect with the person so that you can collaborate with that person.
Now that's on the building side, but which that's really good. Thank you.
Sure.
I didn't know about first in feed. I keep learning pieces all the time on this. But I think for me, part of the question is because when I'm scrolling,
mm-hmm.
I'm a scroller more than a poster. Sure. I want to see what's going on. That's kind of my personality in this world anyway, because I just don't know it, so I avoid it. But I watch what other people comment on. I'll tell you the number one person I comment on is an atheist guy that I know the Lord's put on my heart that I went to high school with to help reach for Jesus. So I post and I get into his world. Now it makes me a target for sure with all of his friends, and he's often posting about political issues. So it even puts a bigger target on my back. But in all honesty, if my conservative friends are posting anything political, I just avoid it totally.
Sure,
because I feel like I don't need that. So I guess for me, it's more that piece about not how do I post to build my ministry, but how do I actually engage socially with people to advance the kingdom? Yeah, what are the do's and don'ts?
All I can advise people is to produce engaging and inspiring content for your audience. I really just don't think you're gonna when it comes to jumping from, a complete atheist into a theist into a Christian. I just don't think that jump happens on Facebook Messenger.
No,
I don't think it happens at all on social media. No. I mean, can God do it? Absolutely, God can do it. No one's denying that. But realistically, you break bread, you care, and you mourn with people. You when stuff hits the fan, you just go and you cry with them. And you've got to have a face-to-face. I mean, we're only talking about one avenue to get people closer to that face-to-face.
I agree with that. I mean, the cool thing is because, but in re-engaging there and staying engaged there because he lives on the other side of the country. But yesterday I'd worked all day and I was really about to eat, but my phone rang and his number came up. Yeah. His name came up. So everything goes on the side because he's calling. So it's for me, it's become that pathway. But I also know that if he's scrolling over on my feed and I'm engaging in some stuff that's going to shut the door.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a long time for a door to open and it's real easy to get a door to shut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe shifting a little bit of gears here. Thinking about our listeners, many are probably pastors on staff, church leaders. Again, growing ministries. For the pastor who has a lot of friends on social media that are churched, are his congregation, or the only real reason they're linked to him is because he is their pastor or she is their pastor. Mm-hmm. How does one balance? I'm Pastor Taylor, right? You don't know me in any other context than Pastor Taylor, mm-hmm. and the fact that my mom and my brother and extended friends and family from wherever are on there as well. How do should we balance that? Should we try? Is it the same thing?
I don't care that, like, I mean, I know that's probably raw, but like, I don't, if you are who you are and if your social platform is just that, it's social. If you've invited someone into your friend circle, if you have a closed friend, if you have an open friendship, basically saying, can your profile be seen by everyone or can only be seen by exclusive people? Mine's open. Anyone can see my content. If you search Josh Lewis, which is the most popular name on the planet, and you happen to find me, it's like that by itself is almost a level of security that my name is Josh Lewis, right? So if you wanted to find me and you could actually find the real me, you could just go through and watch all my posts. I have no problem with that. You could comment on those, you could like them, you could share them. I am me always. I don't get into the pulpit and put on the pastor hat. I am that 100% of the time. When I get off the pulpit, I'm still that. We went and had lunch today. Y'all couldn't get me to shut up about theology. Like, that's just who I am all the time. I can't stop. I worked as a graphic designer for the past 8 years of my life, and now I'm a roofer, right? Because I don't have a job in ministry, so I'm roofing, right? So I am this all the time. You ask my clients, we talk about Christ because you can't get me to shut up. Now, if you are creating a facade for your family, a facade for your church, and a facade for your friends, I think we need to have a different conversation about schizophrenia. I think you just need to be who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that if you want to create different personas, business, pastor, friends, then create a pastor's page, create a business page, and create a personal page. But your personal page, I'm just going to let you up front. This should be you 100% of the time. You should never change that or filter that or censor that. If you use bad language that you wouldn't use in the pulpit, well, that's an integrity problem. I'm sorry. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to share edgy political things, like it's okay here, but it's not okay in the pulpit. That's an integrity problem. We've got to fix that. So I think that's unilateral. We keep holding pastors to this unrealistic expectation that we want to hold ourselves here and then pastors up here. And that's just not, no.
I appreciate that. That's one of the things that we talk about that really your generation has brought to the forefront is this idea of authenticity.
Yeah.
Be who you are. So I appreciate that. So let me ask you another staffing thing from that perspective, because a couple things happen. Number one, if you're looking to get a job, secular or ministry staff, whatever, it's very common. They're going to go look at your social media.
How many red solo cups can they find?
That's right. They're going to look for that.
In Bible school, they tell us the first resume your future employer is going to look at is your social media.
Yeah.
Before you send them, before they get past your name, they're going to go on social media and look you up.
So, but there is a component that I don't know that it's necessarily required, but often implied, and by leaders, some pastors who we're listening to, for their staff or for the staff that they should, when we post something on the church's page, you have to retweet, reshare. You have to make sure that you're always paying attention and you're pushing out through you need to use your private social media account to push our corporate social media account. Help us with some guidelines there.
So I think there's a couple levels there. I would stand up on a Sunday morning and tell the congregation we have a competition on social media, and whoever shares the most, every time you share a post that we share this month, every time that we put out a post and you share it, we put your name in for a raffle. And whoever's name gets pulled wins,
Whatever.
$80 for a gift card to whatever, we'll do raffles for the whole church. I could encourage the whole church. Hey, we really are trying to reach our online platform. Would you help us share in those kinds of things?
What's the phrase? Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. Yeah. So, asking your staff, hey guys, we're really trying to do a push here in this season for this or that. Please help us out. I don't think any of those things have violated anything ethical. I don't think any of those have violated your friendship and your relationship with those people. You're just asking them to do something because of your relationship with them. No more than someone who's in marketing or sales would say, hey, would you recommend me as a lead? It's perfectly ethical and normative. I think where I am uncomfortable, and I think that there's an open dialogue here, because this is kind of something new for me. No one's ever had to push this on me in a forceful sort of way. To force someone to speak your words on their behalf, it feels like a breach of freedom of speech, which I think is an inalienable right as an American. But as an American, I believe that those inalienable rights were found in Scripture, that we have the right to speak of our own autonomy. So it'd be one thing for a pastor to say, hey, I don't want you cussing on Facebook, right? That's telling you something not to do, right? That can be code of conduct, absolutely, totally ethical. But then to go an extra mile and say, I need you to say that Joyce Meyer's shirt was ugly this week, right? Whatever. Like if I have to force words into your mouth, right? Then I'm violating. Sorry, I'm trying to break the ice. It's getting kind of, it feels a little bit serious in here. So if I'm forcing you to say something, then you're actually imposing someone else's image or thought through your mouth. It actually changes who you are. If you've never said anything about Joyce, nobody knows anything about know about this. But once you say this about Joyce, they all go, well, that's kind of rude. Like why would you say that? That doesn't sound like you. It changes your character. So I think that anytime someone is forcing speech through you, that this is an integrity question that you're probably over exercising. The Bible says that we're not to be like the Gentiles, lording authority over one another, but we're supposed to be mutually submitted to one another. So I'm perfectly fine with asking, hey, I would like for this to happen. This would help us out. If it's in your hire information, like when they hired you, we require our staff to do this. Sorry, buddy, you signed the contract. Like that's just what you're going to do. Personally, I don't find it very ethical. I wouldn't encourage any pastor to do it. I think that your people would feel manipulated if that were the case. I think it kind of violates levels of trust across the board. So I would encourage against it. That being said, I would be interested in a pastor's opinion who does force his staff to do this. I would love to sit with them and talk to them about why, because they might have reasons that are unbeknownst to me. So I'm at least open to the conversation. But as far as I can tell, that doesn't seem like something I'd be interested in. I hope that's a fair answer.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think the question gets raised just simply as churches, as we talked about in previous conversations, churches are trying to do everything they can to get their name and image and marketing, all of that out there. And so there's just that tension of, hey, we want as many people through whatever avenue to see this event.
If you share this video, I'm going to get more views.
Right.
It's better for the gospel.
Right.
It's got good motivation behind it.
Great motivation.
Of course, a lot of times, all right, let's take you and I. And our platform, before he deleted his platform. Let's take you and I. Okay. Let's take you and I. How many of within our group is the same anyway?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a question of I've seen it out there, and to be honest, I've kind of asked guys. I've said, hey, would you do this? Heck's what I've done with advancement. Now I have to sit and go, okay, should that be? I can't ask Taylor to do it anymore. So
right, yeah.
Marco, should you be?
Yeah. You want to post for us?
But I think first of all, what we said earlier about churches, we probably overpost anyway. Yeah. It relieves some of the pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive. We're really this went by super fast.
Yeah. I got the gift of gab. Sorry.
No. There's good stuff. So since you're the guy with no social media account, I don't know that how do you manage? How does he have a major takeaway from this?
I can tell you my takeaway, because as I said earlier, I felt like social media the Lord said it's a tool. And before this sabbatical, if you would call it that, with social media, it was like taking a hammer and using it for every tool, every need in the house, just using a hammer for it. That may be a poor analogy. We're now coming back whenever, and I haven't felt a date to come back to social media yet. But I think now this whole idea of building a brand and using my target and going, here's a couple things that I am about. Whereas before I might have tried to be about everything. Everything was important, and so it was. You were to go on my stuff, it would be like, you love college football, you love eating, you love missions, you love your wife, dogs, whatever. But how can I use my platform for the gospel's sake in an authentic way? Who God's uniquely called me to be.
Yeah, and I think to that same point, when I brought up the Teen Challenge, I don't know if I was clear. I'm trying to think if I did it. The Teen Challenge guys, I would say, can you do it now? Can you go to Mardi Gras and not be sinful? No, I need my rules. Great. But one day, can you be? Can you go there and have Christ's work be in you so effectively that the drugs, the alcohol, the women aren't a temptation? Not that they're not a temptation, but that you're
not crippled by it.
They're not crippled by it. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So the same thing with this. If we have to say, let's put up these rules to keep ourselves safe for a second, just don't impose those rules universally forever, because I think they'll hinder the person in the long run.
Right.
That's good. That's really good. So here we are wrapping up. This has been 4 parts. Guys, if you haven't listened, this has been incredible content with Josh. Thank you again for so much for giving your time and giving us this opportunity to talk about social media. Feel like there's so much we left undone, but we'll just have to look at that in the future. So check us out on the Advancement Podcast. And thank you again, Taylor, Josh. We'll see you guys next. Oh, I'm supposed to ask a question, aren't I?
Takeaway.
Yeah. Well, we did the takeaway. My brain. I think the question that I'm walking away with and that I would challenge leaders is, when you look at your personal social media feeds, are you being authentic, or are you all over the map?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on the Advancement Podcast. The show notes are available on our website at www.advancement.cc, along with other resources. Again, this is Taylor Schode on behalf of Tim Ware and the entire Advancement team. We want you to remember that you are meant to advance.